was looking at the ARB spreads right before we came on air, and you can still make $7 in this trade if you're looking at Time Warner. Why? This seems insane. It looks like it's less than a week away from closing.
Yes, I mean, it's a great point, right? I mean, if you think about it, we're already in sort of an unprecedented period right now with this review. Most folks had expected this deal to pass regulatory muster, late last year. And now we're at June, kind of waited with bated breath for Judge Leon's decision. I think what it comes down to, the fact is the market, and ourselves included, historically look at precedent and judge or base our decisions on the spread based on how the trial has gone relative to that precedent. But it all comes down to one man's decision, and that adds a little bit more uncertainty than most people are used to.
I want to come back to him in a second, but let's just look at the short interest around AT&T, because it's unusually high for a sort of stock at this process in the merger. It's about 3.2%. You guys in your note suggest that AT&T could actually benefit either way. Even if it loses its case, just the very clarity of sort of being out of this process would be beneficial to the stock. So what is the market doing here? Why are we seeing this high short interest?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's a number of factors. Certainly the uncertainty that you mentioned in looking at sort of the ruling and what's going to happen tomorrow. I think that also a lot of folks are thinking about what AT&T's strategic position could be. I mean, it's a very different track if Time Warner happens than if it doesn't. Currently, AT&T is also facing additional pressure from its DirecTV business. So I think it's a matter of all of those factors that have created the high short interest, and certainly a high focus on this transaction for tomorrow has also got the ARBs playing this in very unique ways.
There were obviously loads of moving parts to that equation, but let's just look at the sort of the near-term versus the long-term takeaway here for AT&T. If they get this clarity, that's good for them short-term because it sort of puts them back in a position where they're easy to understand. Long-term, where do they go without Time Warner?
That's a great question, right? Because if you think about it, what AT&T's been communicating both to the market and through the trial is how critical Time Warner is to the future of the distribution model. Because it's all about access to end customers and providing that access on a combined vertical basis. If you don't have Time Warner, how do you answer the question and the environment that you're basically saying you need to go against? And I think that puts them in a strategic quandary. From our perspective, there's a couple of options. I mean, they could try a string of pearls strategy and streaming together a bunch of different media assets. They could focus on 5G as sort of a distribution hub, or they could view some sort of shareholder-friendly usage, either paying down their debt in an accelerated manner or a buyback. But ultimately, from a strategic standpoint, that question is outstanding.
Right, and Randall Stevenson, chief executive of AT&T, he does not want a string of pearls. He wants Time Warner, and he said consistently it's a vertical merger, we should be allowed to do this. What's the future for him? If they can't do this deal, if they get blocked tomorrow in the decision, can he survive?
Well, I think that, as we said before, this is sort of unprecedented in nature as to where we are. I think that most folks have sort of anticipated that this deal would have received regulatory muster. So I don't think that there's any sort of decision that he has made that necessarily put them in that position. But I do think that how they respond to however this deal transpires is really definitely going to impact sort of his tenure at the company going forward. But again, given that it's sort of unprecedented nature, it's hard to speculate how that would be viewed for his position.
And he, and to a broader extent, AT&T, they've gone out with this sort of narrative from the beginning, which is now over 18 months ago when they struck this thing, that they needed content to stay relevant. They needed Time Warner to sort of offset this disruptive future where you have the likes of Amazon and Netflix and Google all coming into their space. We're now, to some extent, in that future. A lot of time has elapsed. If they do get this deal through, what is the right narrative for investors post-deal with the pro forma company?
That's very, very, very good point and a very good question. First and foremost, we have to understand the financial benefits to this transaction. They've talked a bit about the synergies, but I think investors really need to better understand how content plus distribution equals synergies across the platform. How can a distribution model take advantage of the fact that it now has content under the same umbrella without crossing any of the regulatory burdens that are placed on that.
And they're talking about $1 billion just of cost synergies.
Correct,
right.
Correct, just of cost synergies. And then the other question then comes down to is how to compete with guys who have direct access to customers, right? When you think about someone like a Netflix, they're putting a tremendous amount of money into content creation and then distributing it that directly to customers. And the real question is, how does AT&T, with its strong distribution plus its content assets, end up changing the game in order to go after that customer?
Okay, so we're talking about all of these various factors that feed into it. We've heard all the logical arguments on both sides. We know this would be unprecedented either way. But ultimately, as you say, this comes down to one person, Judge Richard Leon. He decides tomorrow. What do we know about him? Is there anything that we can sort of deduce from his character about which way this may go?
Well, look, I think that based on our understanding of past rulings, he is one to take into account historical precedent. And as you mentioned in our note, we do believe that the deal favors AT&T at this juncture in terms of the structure and what we've seen in terms of historical past precedent. The question really comes down to is the devil in the details. What's the ruling going to favor? How is it going to be structured? What are the potential behavioral remedies that are going to be imposed on the transaction? And ultimately, that's going to determine how this all plays out.